mentioned this morning how bad the rough draft was. How bad the rough draft was that you received?
That we paid $450 for? Yes, sir.
Good. Wanted the record to be clear that those rough drafts are not provided by the South Carolina court reporters, South Carolina judicial reporters.
I want to make it clear that if I said that, I never implied that our South Carolina court reporters would produce such a deficit product.
Yes.
It was made clear to me by court administration that it's, what's the name of the company? FDR? FTR. FTR, a private
company. I don't know the name either. So.
Apparently has not perfected its software, because we paid $450 for something that was, as you saw, not of much use. Yeah. So I want to make the record clear. Yes. Not our South Carolina reporters, some northern company. Certainly, Ms. Harris and I have been working together for probably a decade, and I've worked with Mike as well, and they're excellent court reporters. Okay, ready for the jury? Okay, okay, you bring them in.
One of the things that I discussed with the defense, and we had mentioned to Your Honor before, is there's some issues that surround the side of the road, and we're not plowing that ground currently, with the understanding with the defense that if that becomes an issue as the trial goes forward, that there won't be any objection to recalling a witness for that limited purpose. And I just wanted to put that on the record before we go forward.
100% in agreement, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you. You bring the jury. You may call your next witness.
May it please the court, Your Honor, the state calls Ronnie Crosby.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Do you affirm the testimony about to give the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name again for the record as you take the witness stand. Spell your last name, please.
Ronnie Crosby, C-R-O-S-B-Y.
Mr. Crosby, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Fair enough. Tell the jury what your profession is, please.
I'm an attorney.
All right. And where do you what do you work for a particular firm?
I do. I work for currently for Parker Law Group.
All right. And before it was Parker Law Group, did that firm have a different name?
It did. It was Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Ellsroth, and Dietrich. I've heard it referred to as PMPED in here earlier today. So,
do you know the defendant, Alex Murdaugh?
I do.
You see him here in the courtroom?
I do.
Can you point him out to the jury?
He is seated at defense table between Mr. Hartpootley and Mr. Griffin. I believe he has a blue blazer on.
Your Honor, can the record reflect he's identified the defendant?
It does.
When it was still PMPED, did Alex Murdaugh, was he a partner in the law firm that you were part of?
He was.
And as a result of Mr. Murdaugh's actions, is that law firm kind of changed its name now to Parker? Or is that one of the reasons? Or how would you explain that?
Well, yes, as a result of the actions that you heard about earlier today, we did change not only the name of the law firm, but to a separate legal entity.
How long have you been with, and let's just go back and call it PMPED before all of this happened. How long had you been with PMPED?
I started in the summer of '94, so almost 30 years now.
Okay. And when did you first get to know the defendant?
Sometime in the late '90s. I probably met him before then when I was working as a clerk for a judge, Judge Smoke, whose picture's here in the courtroom. And probably met him in court, but met him, really think I started getting to know him at the time of his grandfather, his his grandfather's death,
Okay.
which would have been in the late 90s.
And what was his grandfather's name?
Randolph Murdaugh Jr. or the second, and he went by the nickname of Buster.
Was Buster in the law firm as well?
He was there when I started. He would come into the office. Yeah, he was there. I don't think he was a principal or any kind of equity partner, but he was there. Yes.
Over the years, did you become a partner in the firm?
I did.
And what year do you recall becoming a partner in the firm? Roughly.
I would say somewhere around 99 to 2000.
And did the defendant become a partner in the firm as well?
Yes, he came to work sometime in the late 90s, early 2000, and then would have become a partner probably somewhere around 2004, 2005.
He's been your law partner up until 2021 from that time?
That's correct.
Just real quick before we move on, under the agreement that the partners had, what is the rule as it relates to fees that a partner earns during the course of the year?
All fees belong to the law firm.
And just very quickly, explain to the jury very quickly just the compensation. Is most of the compensation for a partner received during the year or in one lump sum at the end of the year?
Well, as Ms. Seconder laid out earlier, we receive a salary, and then at the end of the year, we divide net profits, which would generally be a larger portion of your income, although not always. Sometimes, depending on how someone's year went, you may not get much of anything as a bonus at the end of the year if your work did not generate sufficient fees to overcome the amount of overhead expenses that was assigned to the individual attorney.
Generally, though, most of the compensation is in that end of the year bonus.
That's fair to say.
Was that the case to your understanding for Alec?
Well, not just Alec, but it was for all of us.
So your observation over the years, did Alec had a relatively lucrative practice?
Yes, he did. He had up and down years like all people who do plaintiff's work, but yeah, he was had a lot of good clientele.
Some years he would get bonuses of 6 and 7 figures, to your recollection?
Yes, he could.
If a lawyer were to do legal work while a partner in the firm and have those fees, if he was sharing a case with another lawyer and had the lawyer issue those fees directly to that lawyer instead of the firm, what would that be?
Mr. Waters, I'm fooling with this microphone, and I may have missed a nuance in your question. Could you ask that again? I apologize. Trying to quit leaning, but apparently I can't stretch it out any further.
Is it common in plaintiffs' cases for lawyers, let's say within the firm, or lawyers within the firm and lawyers outside of the firm to share cases?
Yes, I do that probably 70% of my practices with other law firms.
And in that instance, do you have to split the fee in the event there's a recovery by settlement or trial?
Yes, if there's a recovery up front before when the case begins, the work begins, there's an agreement on how a fee is going to be split with the other law firm. Sometimes there may be multiple law firms in a given case.
And are there instances then when the other law firm is responsible for dispersing the money, including dispersing the fees to PMPED?
Yes, that happens quite often.
And if a lawyer in PMPED were to have those fees made out to him or her instead of the firm, what would that be?
Well, it would be against our policy, but it would be stealing the fees from the firm if they did not come to the firm because they belong to the law firm.
Let me ask you a little bit about the defendant himself. What's your observation of the defendant's cell phone usage?
He was somebody who used his cell phone a lot. I mean, much more than I do. He was always on his cell phone.
And describe a little bit about your observations of him as a lawyer. What were his skills as a lawyer? What was he good at?
Elliot was a very good lawyer. He was good with people, very good at reading people, very good at understanding people, and very good at making people believe that he cared about them and building a rapport and trust with them. And he was very good with strategizing against insurance companies and opposing lawyers that ultimately got oftentimes results that the lawyers in the firm would be really amazed at what a good job he was able to do.
Was he good at understanding the emotional value of a case and being able to leverage that?
Yes, I mean, that goes hand in hand with what I just said. It is very much a strength that he had.
Was he a good technical lawyer? Did he have a lot of academic and technical skills as a lawyer?
Well, I'm not going to judge his intelligence because I think he's very intelligent. As far as being a real student of the law, probably wasn't, and never developed a technical expertise like some lawyers will. Some lawyers specialize in one thing, like medical malpractice, and that's all they do. But he didn't. He was more of a general practitioner.
Around the time of the recession, back 2008, 2009, 2010, did you ever have any conversations with the defendant and gain a general understanding of his financial condition at that time?
I did.
And tell the jury what that was, please.
Well, for a number of years, Barrett and one of his non-lawyer business Alec and one of his non-lawyer business partners, a guy named Barrett Boulware, they did a lot of real estate transactions, just buying land and speculating on it. And I think leading up to that, they had purchased some property that speculating that they could sell it, maybe some developmental property. And of course, we all know what happened in 2008, 2009. That market went bad, and I think both Barrett as well as maybe some of the other partners did not have the financial ability to deal with those loans that they had financed it, and so I think Alec was having to carry a lot of that, and it put a strain on him financially.
At some point after that, to your discussions with him and to your knowledge of the cases in the firm, did he have some big cases that you thought had rectified that strain, that financial strain?
Yes, there was a string of rather large cases. Some of them I actually worked on with him that resulted in very large settlements. That would have been my understanding, would have certainly been sufficient to rectify that, as well as I believe ultimately some of that property that was causing a strain was they were able to sell it. So long answer, yeah, yes.
And what were some of those cases that you thought at least had rectified any financial issues that he had?
A case referred to as Plyler, and it is internally the way we refer to them. Pinckney, which also had a companion case, Thomas. I think the Plyler case was actually 4 cases, but we referred to it as one. And then he had a case called Badger, and those cases would have been large cases.
And that's from your understanding that the legitimate legal fees from those cases were very, very large.
Yes, the law firm earned, and subsequently Mr. Murdaugh would have earned good income off those cases.
Are you generally familiar with what's called the boat case?
Yes.
And is that the February 2019 boat wreck in which Miss Mallory Beach was killed?
Yes, Ms. Beach actually worked for my wife.
Somebody you knew?
Yeah, and I knew her as well as the other girls, and me and Paul.
As a result of that boat case, was it your understanding that the defendant had been civilly sued as a result of that?
Yes, there was a lawsuit brought against Alec and others.
Moving on from the boat case, did you ever have any conversation with, after the boat case, did you have any conversation with Alec about structuring his fees in a particular case?
You know, that conversation had come up around the office with not only him but other lawyers over the years. To my knowledge, I was the only lawyer to ever do that. But he did sometime in the spring of 2021, he had a conversation with me about that.
Okay. And what was the conversation you had with him?
I think it was just generally asking me, you know, how it was, you know, done, whether I thought it was a good idea, what the process was, that type of thing. And I don't recall the very specifics, but I do recall telling him that given the low interest rates, that it wouldn't be very fruitful if you had high interest rates and you can buy into a lock in on an annuity. It would make sense, but you know, there were pretty much zero interest rates during that time.
When you made that point, did he have any response to that?
Other than he was thinking about doing that.
Now, you mentioned that you're actually the only one in the firm that you recall doing structuring some fees. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think that that's a fact, not just that I recall.
And though you actually set up a real structure, correct?
Well, yeah, I did.
All right. You didn't just divert the fees into another account and spend them, correct?
No, and to clarify, and I think Ms. Seckinger touched on it, was the traditional way of doing it to avoid taxes until you're older is you never take what's called constructive possession of the money. So whoever, if it's an insurance company or whoever's paying the money, would pay to the annuity company, and they would buy an annuity, and you would have a contract, and then whatever the terms is when you would start receiving that money, and then you start paying taxes on it. You can take a structure without. There's since then become other ones, but they don't have the tax advantages. They don't really make much sense. Where you can take the money and then you're basically just buying an annuity.
Before I move on, do you know a person by the name of Gloria Satterfield? Or do you know of a person by the name of Gloria Satterfield?
No, I knew Gloria. I knew her for a lot of years.
And did she have any employment relationship with the defendant, to your knowledge?
Yes, she did. And when my children were first born, she helped my wife out a little bit with some laundry and stuff.
What, to your understanding, happened to her, if anything?
My understanding was that she was tripped by some of Alec and Maggie's dogs and hit her head, and approximately 3 weeks later, she died. I don't think she ever came out of the hospital.
Did you ever talk to the defendant about that event?
I recall having a brief conversation. It really wasn't a conversation. It was more him saying that the dogs knocked it down and that the kids were going to sue him for Gloria's death.
All right. The kids, which kids are you talking about?
Gloria's 2 boys, I believe she has.
When you say the kids were going to sue him, did he say it in the fashion of that was going to be an aggressive suit, or did he say it in the way that he was going to help out?
Oh, I understood exactly that it was going to be a friendly insurance claim, so to speak, so that, hey, this happened in hopes that the insurance company would probably pay them some amount of money. I took it to help them out.
Did you ever have any other conversations with him about that case other than that one?
Never had another conversation. Well, no, I've never had another conversation with him about it.
Are you familiar with the case known as the Ferris case or the Mack Trucks case?
Yes, I'm very familiar with it.
Did you have any involvement in that case?
Yes, early on I had some involvement. I was asked to get involved because it dealt with product failure, which is, going back to your reference, has sort of been my specialty over the years. It was where a drive shaft had fallen out of a Mack truck and caused a motorist to have an accident. And when we looked into it, and it turns out there was a recall on it, and so it pretty much made it where it wasn't going to be much of a fight about Mack's responsibility. And so I knew it then, and then when I didn't do anything else in it until it was coming up to trial, and I spent a lot of time talking with Alec about evidentiary issues, witnesses, how they were trying the case, and the posture of it, that type of thing. So, yeah, I was familiar with it.
Okay. Did you ultimately get involved where you were one of the lawyers representing the Ferrises?
No, I did not help him try it.
Did he have an outside lawyer associated with that, or were there lawyers from other firms associated with that?
Well, as I referenced earlier, sometimes there's more than just two law firms. There was a lawyer, a friend of ours in Columbia, that got named Mr. Ridgway, got Mr. Chris Wilson involved, and then in turn, Chris Wilson asked Alec to get involved, which Alec and Chris had worked together a good bit over the years. So there's three law firms.
At some point in May of 2021, did you ever have a conversation with Jeannie Seckinger about the... Well, let me back up. So ultimately, did Alec and these other lawyers try the Ferris case?
They did.
And did they get a recovery in that case?
They did.
And do you know how much Alex Murdaugh's share of the recovery was supposed to be?
I mean, the verdict was several $1 million. I believe that would have been in February of 2021. I believe the share that was supposed to go to PMPED was $792,000 as our portion of the fees.
And you corrected me, that was the amount that was supposed to go to the firm, correct?
Well, that's correct.
$792,000. Did you ever, in May of 2021, did you ever have any conversation with Jeannie Seckinger about those fees?
I did.
And tell me what that conversation was, please.
It was sometime in close relation to Alec asking me about structuring attorney's fees. I walked in Lee Cope's office. Lee and Jeannie were having a conversation about that issue and her efforts to get all the paperwork on the Ferris matter, and she was frustrated. She thought she was getting a runaround both from Chris Wilson and Alec. And then she mentioned something to me about that he had suggested to her that he was trying to hide fees from the boating case.
All right. And what was your reaction to that when you heard that?
Do you want me to say what I said?
You can say the sanitized version, or you can say the real version, either way.
I said, "Oh, fuck, no, we're not."
All right. And why was that your reaction?
Well, because to do that under any circumstance was illegal, unethical, and he would be putting us at risk, and we absolutely were not going to participate in anything that was illegal, unethical, or subjected us to liability or created issues with the South Carolina Bar.
Was it the discussion of the firm leadership that needed to be gotten to the bottom of to make sure that didn't happen?
Well, it was Lee, I, and Jeannie, and we put it in her hands because if she told us that she was being told it was in trust at Chris Wilson's office, and I had no reason to doubt that. I thought he was just trying to take it out in some other way so it didn't go through our system or something, which would have also been tax fraud on our part not to have that accounted for, because we would have got a 1099 at some point in time, and just it was myriad reasons why that wasn't going to ever happen. But I thought if they're saying it was there, you need to just take care of it, get the money, and I didn't think any more about it, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was any stealing going on or anything. I thought that, okay, he's got pressure on him from this Bowden case, and maybe he thinks if he did an annuity out of Chris's trust account, that it wouldn't be accounted for, but it ultimately had to be accounted for. And I knew that. I do involved in a lot of our overseeing, a lot of the accounting and understand it, and there's just no damn way we were going to do that.
At that point in time, you just said you didn't think there was any stealing going on at that point. Not yet, at least. Not.
No, that never came up during that period. We're talking late May of 2021.
Let me ask you this. You've known the defendant since the 90s?
I have.
Did you get to know his family?
Yes, I did.
Did you get to know Maggie?
I knew Maggie.
Did you know her fairly well?
I felt like I did, yes. He was a very nice person.
Did you know Paul?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit of how you knew Paul.
I knew Paul since he was born. Both he and Buster had always referred to me as Uncle Ronnie. We lived just across the way from each other, so I got to know him. I don't know if he used to, when he got into hunting, he hunted a lot on my property, he and Buster. I have a farm right here in Colvin County where I grew up. And so I got to know him, that way. And then Paul was, didn't think this would be that hard. Paul was really good with kids, and he took a liking to my son, who's younger, but he spent a lot of time with him. He'd take him hunting, fishing. They did a lot of hog hunting together. Paul had some hog dogs, and just was around him a lot. He had a great personality. Just really, a kid I really loved,
Paul would come over to your property a good bit?
Yes, and then, and then sometimes as my son got older, he would go over to Moselle and hunt with Parker. I hunt with Paul.
Do you remember June 7th, 2021?
I do.
Did you see Alex earlier that day?
Can you ask that again? I'm sorry.
Did you see the defendant at any point during that day that you were involved?
I don't recall whether I saw him at the office. I was had been in a trial in Columbia that settled. It was a couple of week trial, and it settled on Friday afternoon. And I came to the office to dig out some stuff, but it's fishing season, and I promised my son as soon as I got out of trial we'd go offshore fishing. So I would have left work early that day to go get the boat prepared to go fishing. So I don't remember seeing Alex that morning or at the office. I could have, but it would have been, I saw him later that night, yes, sometime around 11 p.m.
Before we get there, were you at home at that time?
Yeah, I was at home. We would just got finished getting the boat ready. As a matter of fact, and by way of example, we had invited Paul to go fishing with us the next day, and he had to work and couldn't go. My son had called him about it. It was, I think we had just eaten supper and, sitting there looking at weather and looking at all the things you do before you go offshore.
What happened? Did you get a phone call? Did you get a text?
My wife got a phone call, I believe, from Randy's wife wanting my partner, Mark Ball's wife, Lisa's phone number. She's a registered nurse. And it was sort of a quick phone call. She gave it to her. I don't know if Christy just couldn't get it at the time. And at some point after that, I called Randy and asked him, what was going on. And I don't remember his exact words, but it was something about Maggie and Paul being shot.
When you heard that, what was your reaction?
I guess the best to describe as shock, alarm. I immediately told my wife I had to go, and I got in my vehicle and started headed to Moselle.
Did you get there? About what time do you think you got there?
I did get there and arrived at, I'm going to say somewhere on one side or the other of 11 o'clock.
Did you go to the residence or did you go to the kennels?
Well, when I got there, I could see the lights. I didn't know where to go, but when I got there, I could see the lights at the kennels. And I was familiar with Moselle, having been there many times. And so I went to the lights. You could see there was law enforcement lights, could have been a Carlton Fire and Rescue, but it was obvious that's where you needed to go. So I came in the main gate and turned right on what used to be a runway and went straight to the kennels.
Did you get out of your car?
I did.
Did you talk to anyone at that point?
I'm confident that my partner, Mark Ball, was already there. Alec was there. And I know I spoke with both of them.
Were Maggie and Paul still there?
Yeah, Maggie and Paul were there.
Did you talk to the defendant at any point that night?
I did.
How long did you stay at Moselle after that first time you arrived, after Maggie and Paul's murder?
We stayed outside, and at some point, I'm going to say I stayed until about 3:30. It just seems we were standing around back in the house, and it just like we didn't know what to do or what to say, and I knew that Alec was going to have a long few days, several days coming up, and I was like, guys, we're not doing any good here. We need to all go get some sleep and so we can deal with tomorrow. And I think I was the first one to leave, and I almost feel like everybody else pretty much left in the period of time after that. But I know I was the first to leave, and I think it was around 3:30.
Did you return to Moselle the next day?
I did.
Did you have conversations with the defendant the next day?
Yes.
Over the course of the night of and the next day, you have conversations with the defendant. Did he either tell you or were you present when he related to you his activities the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, I gained an understanding of the events of that night over multiple conversations and sometimes perhaps just questions, because without being a lawyer, you would want to figure that out, and being a lawyer and just having something so horrific, we wanted to contribute anything we could to help figure out who did this, who did it.
And what did Alec tell you about his activities that night?
He told me, and when I say me, there may have been multiple people in these conversations. We were all back at the house at Moselle providing support for our friend had just lost his family, and that he'd worked, and I'm somewhere 5:30 to 6 had left work, that he went to Moselle, that Paul had come home from work, and that they rode around, and then at some point they went back to the house and had dinner, and Maggie was there, is my understanding. And then after dinner, that Maggie and Paul went outside and to the dog kennels, and that he sat on the couch and fell asleep. And that would have been around 8 o'clock that he sat on the couch and ultimately fell asleep.
He said between 8 and 9 o'clock he was asleep on the couch, or he was at the house?
He said I took it that he laid down on the couch, maybe watching TV, and fell asleep, and then around 9 o'clock he woke up, and then somewhere around 9 o'clock he went to back to Varnville to Alameda to check on his mother.
And what did he say after that? He did after that?
Well, he said he laid on the bed with her. He didn't give a time, but that he laid there. I took it he was just sort of laying there to comfort her because I understood her condition. And then he said that he came back to Moselle and that he went to the house, and that when he got to the house, he discovered that Maggie and Paul were not there, and that he then got back in his car, or his Suburban, which was an office-issued vehicle, and he drove down to the kennels, and it's more than just kennels there. I think y'all have seen maybe sheds there. And he discovered Maggie and Paul's bodies.
Did he say whether or not he had gone down to the kennels with Maggie and Paul before he left to go to Alameda after 9 p.m.?
That came up in one of the conversations, and he specifically said that he did not.
He did not.
He did not.
I'm going to play for you what's been admitted into evidence as States 297. I want you to listen to it and tell me if you recognize any voices on this video, please.
Get up. Get up. Quit, Cash. Quit. It's okay. Come here. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. Hold still. Cash. Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth. Hey, Bubba. It's a guinea. This is a chicken. Come here, Bubba. Come here, Cash. Come here, Bubba. Cash. Quit.
Did you recognize any voices on that video?
The three voices on that video are the voices of Paul Murdaugh, Maggie Murdaugh, and Alex Murdaugh.
And how sure are you? How sure are you?
I'm 100% sure that's whose voices are on that the audio there.
Is this law firm pretty close-knit?
Yeah, we're very close in that. A group of lawyers. I think we have a very family-like environment with our staff, as well as the lawyers are all very close. A lot of us do and still do, a lot of activities together. Our families grew up together. Been a great experience working with these guys.
Did these murders of Maggie and Paul, did it send a shockwave through the law firm, greater family?
Well, yes, it did. Just beyond the horror and disbelief, we didn't have an understanding. I mean, the staff had a general sense of insecurity and fear. We had to take a lot of security measures because we did not have an understanding of what the possibilities out there could be, and then this horrific loss of, I think Paul had, the kids, Maggie would come up to the law firm regularly, maybe need to use a computer or just to see Alec or whatever. So and it was as much of a shock as you could imagine.
In the wake of this tragedy, did the law firm family rally to the defendant's aid?
We did. We were there every day for the rest of the week, and as you already know, Mr. Randolph passed away in the wake of this, so it was a really bad week where the Murdaugh family in particular, but all of us needed to be together to support each other.
With all of this tragedy and the support and the outpouring and everything going on, did you have any discussion about what to do about the Ferris fees, or was there a discussion that this can't be the time to bring this up?
The only discussion that I recall was Alec told you they were in trust. There's no way we're going to talk about money in this. And we had no reason to not believe that. I wasn't aware of some of Jeannie's conversations. I was aware that Alec told her they were in trust. I trusted him, and I said, let's just leave it be. I don't know. Just not something that you would talk about as money in the wake of such tragedy that had gone on the week of June 7th, including the loss of Mr. Randolph.
At some point in July of 2021, did it come to your understanding that at least the firm had heard from Chris Wilson's firm that supposedly those missing fees were in his trust account?
That was reported to me. I did not look at the email, but it was reported, and that was even further confirmation that we didn't have an issue, because we had worked on many cases with Mr. Wilson's law firm, and if he's said it, another lawyer who's a friend and colleague said, I've got the money, then, it wasn't something to be concerned about.
Before I get to ask you this, you said that you had developed a relationship with Paul, is that right?
Yes,
Did you eulogize Paul at his funeral?
I did.
And you and your son like to hunt and fish and do outdoor things with Paul?
We did.
And that's how you got to know him well?
Well, you got to understand that even like when we go to legal conventions, a lot of time we take our kids with us. And I was just around Paul a lot. It wasn't just hunting and fishing, but he pretty much had free reign of my property. But he would always tell me. Paul was a very polite young man, and he wouldn't just go even though he could. He would always let me know. And he killed a lot of his first deer on our property, and just got to see him grow up.
Did Paul have a shotgun he favored, to your knowledge?
I would see Paul with a like a 12 gauge Benelli Super Black Eagle. Yeah, I've seen him with that a number of times.
Did Paul occasionally like to hunt hogs?
There was a period of time where he was obsessed with it. He had dogs and those 300 blackout with thermal scopes, and you know he would do it. And I love for him to come to my property to do it, because anybody has ever seen what hogs do to property, they're a nuisance. And so I was happy for him to come and shoot them.
And he used what gun for that?
Well, you know, in the early years he used a 300 a lot, and then they got where they were catching them and killing them with knives and stuff like that. So they you know, the hog hunters do it in different ways. But the 300 blackout, I think, was usually accompanying them.
In the aftermath of the murders, did you have any conversation, or were you privy to any conversation in which Alec talked about the family 300 blackouts?
Well, the day after, I saw the casings that night and thought that they were 223s. And when I found out the next day from somebody with Carleton County, one of the guys I knew who was there, that there were actually 300 blackouts, you know, we started inquiring of where Paul's and Buster's 300 blackouts were located. And I remember asking Alec about it, and he said that one of them was in the room, and that he didn't know where the other one was.
Did he mention a third one at that time?
At some point he did. That there was a.
Go ahead.
He said that one of them had gotten stolen or misplaced, which if it was misplaced, that would not seem odd to me, because Paul was pretty good about, he would sometimes leave his guns at my place, and then he had bought a replacement at some point in time. I don't recall the dates on any of that.
Did he tell you what happened to the replacement?
No, I assumed that the replacement was, that they still had the replacement. I never heard anything about anything with the replacement, just that they had a total of 3. And I remembered that Mr. Bedingfield had built those rifles.
You've testified that after moving into July and August, you'd gotten an email, or at least been informed that there had been some representation that Chris Wilson had those fees, correct?
That's correct.
Moving into September of 2021, did you have any trial or anything going on that you were actively involved in at the time?
At the end of August, early September, I was getting ready for a products liability trial over in Dorchester County that was going to last several weeks.
Did you receive any communications from your firm about any issues regarding the defendant?
We were doing pretrial motions, things that you do before trial starts. There's a lot of work that gets done by the court, and so we were taking care of a lot of things that would keep the jury from waiting around during the trial beforehand. And September 2nd, we were over arguing motions and taking care of pretrial matters. And so when I got out of court, I saw that I'd missed communications from one of my partners, Mark Ball, and I called him, and he said, "We have a problem." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "You have to come now." And I said, "I'm just walking out of court. I need to go home and eat supper, and it's not on my way." And he didn't ever tell me what it was, but he said, "You have to come now." And I could tell the urgency, and so he told me where to meet him, and that would have been in Cummings, South Carolina, at my partner Danny Henderson's place, and which was not on my way home, but he was so insistent that I went there and met. When I got there, Danny and Mark were there waiting on me.
And ultimately, what was your discussion?
I was giving a folder that had paperwork in it, and that paperwork consisted of checks, both front and back, and I was asked to review them.
Were those the what's been called the fake forged checks?
I believe the fake forged checks, there was not all of them that Ms. Seconder went over, but I believe that there was, I could probably call the names of most of them that were there. I know it was Anderson, Bush, Moore. There was about 5 or 6 of them, and I believe they had a copy of the Ferris check there too.
Ferris check?
Yes, and I'd sat for a minute and reviewed it. I think Danny said, "You're going to need a drink." And so,
Did you have a drink?
yeah, ultimately more than one.
What happened after that?
Well, they didn't tell me what was in it. They let me review it on my own, and I immediately said, "This is bad." And my words then were that we have to terminate Alec. He cannot no longer practice with us. And that was within, I don't know how many minutes, but it was not a long period of time, because the way Jeannie had it laid out, it was clear what had happened and that this money had been stolen.
Did any of the partners go to confront Alec with this information that had been uncovered?
Yes, there was a meeting the following morning at Lee's house. I did not attend. I did not need to attend. I was still getting ready for trial. I had already decided where this was going, and they met, and then we, Danny and Randy, Alec's brother, went and met with Alec.
And what was your understanding of what the defendant said as a result of that?
That he admitted and said that he knew he was going to get caught at some point in time, and admitted to them that he did it.
Ultimately, did the firm engage in a very extensive investigation to determine the extent of any alleged misappropriation that the defendant had done related to client fee, firm fees or client money?
We did. We initially turned over what we had to state law enforcement, and then decided to, we immediately decided to hire an outside auditor, a forensic auditor, to come in and look at our books to see if there was anything else. But parallel with that, we were doing our own internal investigation into his files.
And was Jeannie Seconder, as your CFO, was she heavily involved in that review?
She was the point person doing that with whatever support staff she needed under my supervision and Mark and Lee's supervision.
And have you seen spreadsheets that she's made and other documentation that's been put together and gathered by others in the firm as that investigation went forward?
I'm very familiar with all of it.
And are the results of those accurate as you've been able to review firm records and gather information?
The documents that were entered into evidence earlier today through Ms. Seconder are accurate.
At any point in time, whether June of 2021 or going back years, if you as a partner in PMPED, had found out that the defendant was allegedly diverting money to an account in the name of a business, an account that he actually controlled, and then converting that to personal use client money, what would you have done?
If I had become aware of it, he would have been asked to resign, or I would have forced a vote, and he would have been terminated under our contract.
What else, if anything, would you have done?
I would have done the same thing we did, would have turned it over to law enforcement and would have reported to the South Carolina Bar because of it affected our business and our trust account.
If at any point over the years you had found out that the defendant had been diverting fees that were properly due the firm and spending those for personal use and never accounting for them and not being truthful with firm members, what, if anything, would you have done?
He would have been asked to resign, or a vote would have been called and he would have been terminated.
What else would you have done, if anything?
Because that conduct would have been illegal, it would have been reported to law enforcement as well as the South Carolina Bar.
If at any point in time you had uncovered or had discovered information that the defendant was having checks issued from the firm trust account in the name of Palmetto State Bank, and then having someone at the bank convert those into checks that he could use for personal use, what, if anything, would you have done?
Would have asked for his immediate resignation and or forced a vote, and he would have been terminated. His activities would have been reported to law enforcement as well as any activities of anyone at the bank who was complicit in this what I would call a money laundering scheme.
And in each one of those instances, would the firm have also engaged in a detailed review to determine the extent of any alleged misappropriation?
Well, absolutely, and I could only wish that one of those clients early on had brought that something to our attention, so we could have dealt with it years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. Nothing further at this time.
Yes, sir. Mr. Griffin?
Good afternoon, Mr. Crosby.
Good afternoon, Mr. Griffin.
Can we get this photo taken down? Can we just kill it? Just kill it? Yeah, the one. Oh, it's the computer thing. There it went. That's all. So, it's good. It's good. We're good. Thank you. Mr. Crosby, I was struck by a comment you made, and I just want to confirm it. You were informed by folks at the meeting when Alex was confronted about financial misdeeds. According to the reports you received, that Alex's response was he knew he was going to get caught at some point in time. Is that what was reported to you?
That's what I recall.
Okay. And he asked you to speak eulogize Paul at Paul's funeral, right?
He did, and I did.
And you very close to Paul, and Paul was a super guy, wasn't he?
Yes to both of those questions.
You said that Paul carried around a .300 blackout and a 12 gauge shotgun, a Benelli Super Eagle, I believe you said?
That's my memory. And you know, obviously they had numerous guns, but I had seen Paul with those on multiple occasions.
If I showed you a Benelli Super Eagle that's in the courtroom, would you be able to recognize if Paul's or not? Or?
I don't know at this juncture. I believe it was camouflage.
Camouflage Super Eagle.
And all camouflage Super Eagles.
Trying to not point at anybody, but does this look like Paul's gun?
I'll say it looked like it. Will I say it was? I can't say that.
I understand, and Your Honor, I'm holding up, for the record, State's Exhibit number 4, and I put my papers down. Also, you testified that when you got to Moselle the night of the 7th, that you were you went through the main entrance, and that's the entrance with the, I guess, the brick facade or whatever, the brick gates opening up. That's the main entrance you went in?
Yes, there's a brick facade and then I think the metal iron gates, but they were open.
And then if you go up and you would have gone straight to the house if you'd gone straight, but you turned right, and you said, you know, and there's a little roadway there, an old runway, and you were able to get back up to where the kennels were from that direction, correct?
That's correct. It's not far when you turn right. You know, a couple hundred yards maybe.
And then, but you said you were able to see shell casings, what you thought would be 223. Where were they?
The one, I don't think I saw everyone that was there. I remember seeing one, seems like in the driveway. Closer to the road from Paul and Maggie's bodies.
So were you able to get inside the crime scene tape?
I don't know if there was crime scene tape up at that point in time.
Okay. So you were able, as you recall, just to walk up. Were Maggie and Paul's bodies covered at the time you got there?
Yes.
But you were able to get into the crime scene close enough where you could tell what you thought the caliber of the shell case.
Right, and I didn't walk from where I was parked there. I walked completely around the hangar and went over to talk to people I knew that were there, the fire and rescue people, just to get what their assessment was. And I could see from where they were positioned, I could see, I didn't get over it, but I could see from a distance, and I'm very familiar with
Sure.
firearms, and I saw what I thought was a 223 casing.
Okay. And you later learned, I guess, the next day on the 8th that it wasn't a 223 but a 300 blackout. Is that right?
Yes, and I can't for the life of me tell you there was that point in time there was some law enforcement out in the hangar and around, and I just asked a question and they corrected me.
Right. Okay. And that and you started to assist any way you could with trying to find out who could have done this. Isn't that right?
Well, Jim, I didn't that night. I was trying to get, and we were starting to, I don't know, it was shot, man, But out in the days following, we had a lot of conversation amongst my partners and I about who could have done this, and obviously we were theorizing on stuff, and with very little information, obviously, but we were trying to find out things, whether Paul had been in an argument with anyone, or if anybody had. I don't know. It's just what you would naturally do, is ask questions.
One of the things, you went down to Jimmy Butler's. You remember that?
I did.
Now, what's Jimmy Butler?
Jimmy Butler's a business in Varnville that does mechanic work. He sells trailers. He sells portable buildings. Used to sell cars, but I had learned that Paul had taken his truck there the Friday before the murders.
Right. And so the Friday before the murders, Paul's truck, and what was his normal truck? Was it F?
It was a F-150.
A white F-150.
White F-150.
And you had understood that his white F-150 was put in the shop at Jimmy Butler.
Yes, and I specifically was going to see if Paul's guns were in his truck.
Right. And did you check the truck?
I did. I looked inside of it, and I also got. I had learned that Mr. Rowe was working for Alex at the time, and had taken him over to pick him up when he took his truck to drop off for repairs. And I asked Mr. Butler to pull surveillance tape so I could see if Paul got his guns out of his truck while he was getting out of one vehicle into another.
And because it was Paul's habit to carry the guns in his truck, right?
Right, and I believe actually when I looked in there was still a pistol and some shotgun shells, that type of stuff in there, but I didn't see any long guns. I didn't get inside of his truck and rummage around. I just looked.
And so you didn't observe any 300 blackout or any shotgun in Paul's truck at Jimmy Butler's. Is that right?
I did not.
And then I think you also looked at videotape to see if Paul took guns out of his truck when he got back in. I guess Mr. Rowe picked him up. Is that right?
That's correct. And another one of another pickup that Alex had on the farm.
And you didn't see Paul removing any guns from his truck when he got in the truck with Mr. Rowe?
That was not evident on the video.
Okay.
And I could see him getting out of one vehicle into the other.
And you were down there on the morning of the 8th, and after SLED had released the crime scene. When I say there, I'm talking about down at the kennels. Were you not?
Yes, I was asked to go there by Randy's brother, Alex.
Okay. And I don't want to be too grotesque at all, but just were there still blood and biological material there at the scene?
Yes.
Okay. And did you notice that there were some still birdshot pellets in the feed room that had not been collected by the SLED agent?
Yes. They were what appeared to me to be you know, we could pretty much tell what they were, yeah, from looking at them. And I believe they would have been a TSS type murder.
Okay. And did you gather those up, to your knowledge?
Did I?
You or anybody, you know, with you?
Jim, I mean, Mr. Griffin, I apologize.
Call me-
We know each other, so I
Please,
apologize.
call me Jim.
That area in that room, well, we could see them. It was so bad. We thought we were going to, at some point, clean it up, but it overwhelmed both my partner, Mark, and I. Well, we could see that, and we could see everything, all the other aftermath. We were getting biological material. I mean, it just couldn't be there. It was bad, you know, and it was overwhelming us. So, no, I did not try to collect evidence.
And the scene inside that feed room, I take it as something that still is etched in your mind's eye memory.
Yes.
When you were down there when you got there the first time, I believe you went up to Mark Ball, and he was there. He got there before you.
Maybe a few minutes. We had already talked about, you know, that.
Did it look to you and Mark like the crime scene was being preserved and carefully keeping people off of areas that maybe they shouldn't be trampling on?
Well, it was my understanding that the crime scene had been released, so that.
Well, I'm talking about 11 o'clock. I'm sorry, I jumped back. 11 o'clock when you got there, around 11 on the night of the 7th. When you pulled up, as I understand, you walked around the shed, the workshop, and went to the back, and maybe Mr. Ball was back there. I could have that wrong, but is that what happened?
Well, we were there. I saw people working through the crime scene, and you're kind of asking me for an opinion that I don't feel qualified to give, because I assumed that whatever was going on was being done with whatever procedures. But there were people in that, in the crime scene doing various things.
Okay. And I'm not asking you to give an opinion. I was just asking you if anyone expressed an opinion in your presence about they shouldn't be doing this or should be doing that.
I don't specifically recall.
Okay. Well, did at some point in time, you and Mark and whoever else, were y'all directed to go to the main residence at?
We were, and for the life of me, I can't tell you who told us to go. I can tell you it was at the time that whoever is the photographer for the crime scene, they were getting ready to start, taking photographs, and it was stated that we're going to photograph the scene. Y'all go to the house. We don't, you don't need to be in these photographs.
Okay. And so who all went to the house, best you can remember?
I know I did. I know Mark did. Austin Crosby, who's one of my partners, did. Danny Henderson did. Randy Murdaugh did. John Marvin did. Alec at some point did. And he may have been, I believe he was accompanied by some officers when he came. I think maybe Chris Wilson may have The others I'm positive of, but there could have been a couple other people. You know.
And had it looked to you like anybody from law enforcement had searched the resident, inspected the residence before you guys went in?
I don't know that I would know what it would look like if it had been searched. It was my perception that it had not been searched yet.
And then you mentioned at some point in time, Alec came up, and maybe law enforcement were with him?
Mr. Griffin, my memory is that Alec came in, and at or about the same time, 2 agents came, and I remember them collecting his clothes is what stands out to me. One stood in the doorway or the foyer to the house. We were kind of in the living room and maybe the kitchen area, and then another agent, and I'm assuming it was SLED, but it's kind of blurry, and it happened pretty quickly. Went maybe to the door of a bedroom while Elliot was changing clothes, and then he brought his clothes out and gave them to the agent who stood in the edge of the living room or foyer or whatever you want to call it.
And did the agent just open up a bag and Alec dumped his clothes in the bag? Is that how you remember it? A paper bag?
I do not know what the composition of the bag was. It was a bag, and it seemed to me the agent was holding the bag out, like, open.
Right.
And that Alec kind of had his clothes in his fingers and just dropped them in, is what my memory was. And what that was, I don't recall there being one bag, and he dropped them in, and it was like a pretty quick transaction.
His clothes were not put on a hanger for sure.
No, Elliot had them in his hands when he came out of the bedroom. He was in there long enough to take those off, and I think he put back on another pair of shorts or something and shirt.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm jumping around a little bit.
It's okay. I've been right where you are, and that happens.
I think you mentioned in one of your interviews with SLED that Alec had some annoying quirks, and one of them he would just take phone calls in the middle of the deposition.
He would.
Would he get phone calls from his family, Buster, Maggie, and Paul, and drop everything and take the calls?
I've witnessed that.
Was that frequent?
Yes, he would do it in depositions. He would do it in the middle of a conversation, and not with them, but definitely with them. And even in partner meetings and stuff, he would take a call and walk out of the room.
Sure. You had mentioned in your testimony that when you were asked by this second juror about this Ferris fee issue, that really your concern was not that Alec was diverting fees, but he was trying to shelter fees from being disclosed in the civil case. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, let's make sure definitionally we're talking about the same thing. My concern was not that he was stealing because I trusted him. I had no reason to believe that he was stealing. It was the latter, that what she conveyed to me was he was wanting to hide some fees or hide money somehow. I don't remember it being said that it was like I heard earlier in Maggie's name. It was just that he was going to take the fees from Chris Wilson's account so there wouldn't be any record, is the way I understood it, in our trust account.
Right. And you said, F no, we're not doing that.
Those were my words.
Right. The what was Alex? scratch that. After the murders of Maggie and Paul, did you, the immediate aftermath and going forward a few months, did Alec come to the office much?
It was sporadic, but you know, I knew that he was having a lot of trouble sleeping, and you know, he just lost his family and his father, and him and his father were very close. We were aware that, or had understanding that he was taking like medicine to try to help him sleep, and maybe for anxiety, and just you know, the normal things that you would expect there. So even when he came, I would walk in his office and he'd be falling asleep in his chair. He'd be sitting in there, you know, which was evident to me that he wasn't sleeping well. And so I know the Seconder mentioned pills earlier that he was taking. That's what we knew he was taking, because he couldn't sleep at night. He'd be up at all hours of the night.
And did you notice changes in his physical appearance? Losing weight?
Yes, he was losing weight. I don't think he was eating very well by all reports.
And I guess let's sort of go back. The night of June 7th, the morning of June 8th, was, I mean, what was his demeanor?
Well, his demeanor is that he was upset. I could tell that, and you know.
You see him cry?
Yeah, we cried together. I mean, he kept telling me, especially to me, he kept telling me how much Paul loved me, and you know, every time he would say that, we would it would be emotional. I mean, and then he told me that several times over the next few days. It was just almost be how he would start a conversation with me would be to talk about Paul.
And then, did he spend a lot of time with Buster down at Maggie's parents in Somerville? Do you know?
I knew they were. Can you give me the time frame?
So starting in June?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I know he and Maggie's parents had a good relationship, and I recall, because in some of this, I remember seeing some texts between he and I that he was down there. I don't remember. Well, they're dated. I'm sure you have them. And he told me he was down with Maggie's parents. It was one of the days in that time immediately following the murders.
Right. And then at one point in time around, I don't know if it's 4th of July, did he come to your place by boat, or do you remember that? And
It would. Can't say that it was on the 4th of July, but I remember his brother Randy and his wife. I had invited them to my house, you know, for the 4th, and you know, for spend, and they had, you know, something that those of us in the law firm do a lot, that spend time on the weekends together, and they were there, and I'd asked Alec to come over, and he and Buster came by boat from Edisto.
right. And Alec was carrying a gun with him on the boat, was he not?
Yes, he had a gun in a what I want to call a shopping bag, like a cloth type, you know, shopping bag, not one of those plastic ones.
Had you ever seen Alec carrying a gun around before for protection before the murders?
No.
Some point in time, Alec and Buster and the family put out a reward, did they not, for capture of tips for whoever would lead to the arrest of whoever killed Maggie and Paul. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, and who all was involved in the funding of it, I don't know, but there was a reward. I believe it was I know a reward was put out.
And the firm agreed to administer it if there was anyone step forward.
We did.
Second, Your Honor. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Firm have to ever pay anybody for that reward?
No.
You're asked a lot of questions about your interactions and relationship with Alex Murdaugh. You've known Alex Murdaugh how long?
Well, I guess a total of 25 years or so.
Did you really know Alex Murdaugh?
What's the question?
Did he really know Alex Murdaugh?
Character question.
Did he know Alex Murdaugh? Did he really know Alex Murdaugh? I sustain the objection.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Step down. We'll go to the jury room for a break.